As more people struggle with addiction, there's a need for more options in recovery. One of them was recently opened in Boston by The Phoenix, a program started 12 years ago in Denver, Colorado. Its approach to recovery is mainly through physical activity and human connection. To tell us about the program is its founder, Scott Strode. Thank you very much for being with us, Scott.
Thanks for having me on.
This is a program that comes out of your own road to recovery. What was that like?
I actually found recovery here in Boston a little over 21 years ago in a boxing gym in Kenmore Square that's no longer there. But I'd gone into the gym for the first time, started to heal some of the sort of self-esteem wounds and some of the pain that I was carrying from my addiction. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was starting my road to recovery. And eventually boxing and being active kind of led me into other outdoor sports, and I started climbing and doing triathlon, and I didn't know it at the time, but literally when I crossed the finish line or stand on top of a mountain, I started to become more a climber, a person in recovery than I was an addict and an alcoholic. But my addiction started pretty young. I was 11 when I first drank and 15 when I first tried cocaine. So for me, I was kind of off and running at a pretty young age.
You know, I was never particularly good at any of the physical activity you mentioned, but I've done enough of it to know that when you do a little better the next time and a little better after that, it does something to you, doesn't it?
It does, and I think that, you know, for a lot of people who've struggled with substance use disorder or addiction, you know, there's so many self-esteem wounds, often I think from adverse childhood experiences, things that happen to us when we're young, and sort of teach us that we're not sort of deserving or worthy of love. And so we have this pain place, and the first time we try drinking or drugging, it sort of fills that hole. But of course you need to get more and use more, and you can never ultimately sort of fill that space inside. But the difference at Phoenix is you come to our programs, and they're all free to anyone who's 48 hours clean and sober. You actually find a new group of friends that support you in those activities. And just like you mentioned, there's that goal setting, right? You pick a trail, you study it, you learn it, you become a student of it, and you drive up on the weekend and hike it. And it just kind of, you sit a little prouder when you come home. And it's in that sort of emotional and physical strength that you find the kind of fortitude to stay sober.
This is BNN News. We're talking with Scott Strode from The Phoenix. Scott, you've got a new location in Boston, and picture this for us. I mean, you come up, there's a door, and what happens next?
Yeah, so we've been here for a few years looking for that space when we finally found the right match, and it's at 54 Newmarket Square. It's in just down past Boston Medical Center on Mass Ave. So if you've been in that neighborhood, you know it's the sort of tip of the spear for the opioid crisis in the city. There's folks down there that are really struggling to find hope. And really that's what you find when you walk in our doors. If you can muster the strength and you have 48 hours clean and sober, you can come in and all the programs are free. But you walk into a 11,000 square foot gym with climbing walls and weights and people doing pull-ups and Olympic weightlifting and CrossFit and all these activities, and they believe in you until you believe in yourself.
What's it like interacting with these people? Because a lot of them have been through the same thing that the people walking through the door had been through.
Yeah, so all of our coaches are also in recovery, so they have their personal story they bring to their work. But you know, I see in everybody that walks into that gym somebody who can be a good member of society, a good friend, a good brother, a good coworker. All they have to do is address that addiction piece first. And we help folks do that by building that emotional strength.
And in your case, what do you think gave you that strength?
I think the voice that I spoke to myself in was pretty negative and self-deprecating. And I think that, like, when the first time I went out climbing, the climbing guide said, "I believe you can get to the top of this climb," and I tied into that rope and I actually did that, I came back down a different person. And that was the same when I did my first triathlon or when I ran the Boston Marathon. You cross that finish line And every time I did that, I grew a little bit stronger and saw myself in a different light, and allowed me to be a good friend and a climber and a boxer and a triathlete. And that moved me away from being solely defined as an addict and an alcoholic.
Now, I remember once hiking, I had to cross a stream, and I thought it was just too wide for me to cross, but the guy next to me crossed it, so I said, well, I got to do this. I got my boots wet, but I mean, doesn't that go on here too?
It does. It happens all the time, and it still happens to me to this day. You know, even 21 years sober, I'll be in the gym and somebody will teach me something new with the barbell, or I'll put a little more weight on it and not sure I can do it, and I push through and accomplish that goal. And I have my own Phoenix moment. You know, I think we're all kind of rising from the ashes of something in our life. For our folks, it was just a drink or a drug.
Of course, the formula here is that if you get more people coming in the door, you need more people to help them. So how do you get this to sustain itself?
Yeah, so that's actually one way we grow, is we cultivate volunteers and communities around sort of what we call an anchor chapter. So Boston is our anchor here in New England. And already we started a program in Lowell, Massachusetts. So we have a couple classes there a week, and if we find volunteers in other communities that want to get us into their CrossFit gym or open up their yoga studio and run a class per week for people in recovery, that's how we scale. So volunteers are crucial to us reaching more people.
You've done this for a number of years now, so do you have a sense yet about how much it increases the odds of staying sober?
Yeah, we do. We do regular team member surveys, and actually our last team member survey came back as 86% of the people that were active in our program for 6 months stayed sober. And that's a huge number, because you know, formal treatments, anywhere between 40 and 70% of folks relapse within the first 6 months. And we don't even have clinicians on staff. It's just peers supporting each other in recovery, and we're beating some of those metrics.
We should mention, if people want to find out more about how to get help and how to volunteer, what's the best way to do that?
It is to go to thephoenix.org and just check out our website.
And finally, one more thing, because it's coming up very soon, you've got a grand opening event.
Yeah, this weekend on Saturday, 10 o'clock's a workout, 11 o'clock is a ceremony, and at noon is the rock climbing. So come on down, it's free. Anybody just 48 hours clean and sober can come be part of it, and it's a great community.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks for having me on.
Scott Strode from the Phoenix.